Hey, welcome to the 17 Law Studio. And now moving forward, I'm taking your questions. I'm just doing Q&A from now on. I just whatever you're interested in, I'm interested in. And what I've done in the past is I've started uh, taking your questions, and then as I get several in certain groups, and I answer those at the same time. And today I have some random questions, some things that you guys are interested in. So let's just jump right in. The topic today is about more or less getting along with your spouse. How do you get along with your spouse? And I don't think this will be a very long one, but I have some questions on this, and I just want to jump right in and share those, uh, because if you can't get along with your spouse, what else is there, right? Yeah, it's huge. So with that in mind, let me jump right in with some of the questions. I think you'll find these interesting. The first question is, "Hey, I cannot get along with my husband. It seems like we are always at each other's throats. I'm not really sure what to do. He works late. I'm busy with all the children. I'm tired at night. I really wish he would help." And it goes on and gives a few more details, which I love. The more details, the better. And this question is not unusual. This is the norm. This is the kids are small and everybody's busy. Now, what she doesn't say is whether she's working outside the home or inside the home. I don't know that. It doesn't affect anything I'm going to share with you. Uh, but there's multiple things going on here, and really, what this couple needs probably is a vacation without the kids and talk through this. But to get to that point, let me just share with you what happens, and maybe this will help you avoid this. Uh, you get before you get married, you're dating, and you're just always together, and it's always good. Then you have a child, and that child takes some time, right? It's time consuming, and it affects your sleep and all that's good stuff. I'm just saying, the reality of it is it's hard. And then you don't want to leave the child, and maybe mom's breastfeeding and you can't, and maybe you could store up some and pump and all that sort of thing. Uh, but at the end of the day, you've got to figure out, how do you have a child and still stay in tune with your spouse? You say, well, the most important person in your life is the child. Well, not really. That's where most of us disagree. I feel like your most important person in your life is your spouse. Now, obviously, right now, you're going to have to put some things on hold to take care of your child because they can't do anything when they're little. And then become toddlers, that sort of thing. And it's just uh, and the best thing you can do for your child is have a good marriage. And I hear so many things. Hey, I'd take a bullet for my child. Well, you should be saying I'll take a bullet for my wife. I take a bullet for my husband. The better the relationship with the husband and wife, the better relationship you have with your spouse, the better your children are, the better they act, the better they do, the better grades they have, the better everything. So, if truly you would do anything for your children, if you'd say, I'd take a bullet for my child, well, if that's true, then you would work on your marriage and you would have the best marriage ever. But some people say, oh, I don't want to do that. But that's the best thing you can do for your child is have a great marriage. It is a statistical fact. Kids are healthier when the marriage is better. They have a lower BMI. They less chance of going to jail. Less chance of just becoming pregnant as a teenager. Better grades. Better acceptance rate in colleges. You just name it. Healthier mentally, healthier emotionally, healthier physically. More compassionate children come from homes where the marriage is the most important part of the family. And yet, we have people say, I'll take a bullet for my child. Well, I'd take a bullet for him, but I wouldn't work on my marriage for him. Yeah, I'll do all these other things. But in this particular case, I don't know what all is true and isn't true. But I can share that what I've seen. This may not be as that case. The husband works all day. He So does the wife. Guys, I haven't seen too many jobs. I could not stay at home with the kids all day. Couldn't do it. I would go crazy. Just I'm not equipped for it. My wife did an amazing job, but I promise you her job was harder than mine. I feel like my job's pretty tough. Uh, but anyway, so the guy comes home expecting to sit down and have somebody read his, feed him grapes and rub his feet. And meanwhile, the wife has got up before he did, been no breaks during the day with the kids all day. And then at night, got to wait on not only the kids, but the husband too. And then she cooks and cleans and the husband. And then she gets upset at the husband because he's sitting on his butt doing nothing. And she's having to do all the work. And then she lets him know. And what does he do to respond to that? Well, he works later. Then he works later. And he blame, oh, I got this project. I got this. I got this. Why would a husband want to come home to a wife who's hitting him in the eye, hitting him in the mouth with a bunch, why aren't you helping? Why aren't you helping me do this? Why would a husband? Why wouldn't he want to? Why wouldn't he want to come home to a peaceful home? Right? Well, guess what? He's the reason the home isn't peaceful. If he would come home and help, it would be peaceful. But I see that doesn't happen. So you got the wife who's getting resentful, and then the husband who's avoiding it by not coming home. And then hey, he'll just come home in time, put everybody to bed, and then he can go do his thing, she can go do her thing. And then we wonder why marriages don't last. But if the best thing you can do for your marriage, I mean for your kids, is your marriage, how do you fix that? Well, one, you got to somebody's got to call a timeout and say, okay, he's going to have to start coming home and doing his job, and she's going to have to stop whining about it or fussing at him. Not whining about it, but fussing at him about it. We gotta get. Yes, he deserves to be fussed at. I get that. I'm just saying we're not getting anywhere like this. So somebody's got to take a deep breath. Somebody's got to apologize. Somebody's got to start the process of getting this better. So the husband needs to realize this is what we've done at our house, what I've done at my house my whole life. I have this saying, I don't sit down until my wife does. I don't think it's her job to raise the kids. It's our job to raise the kids. I don't think it's her job to cook and clean. It's my job. It's our job to keep the house going. Now, a lot of women work, so they come home from a full day's work just like the husband, and they have got to deal with the kids at night and do it all without the husband. And eventually women get tired of that. They just say, I don't want to deal with you anymore. So now, and it gets unhealthy. Most of the time I'm not saying you always have an affair, even though that happens, but a lot of times one of the spouses will just start pouring their life into the kids and forget the spouse. Hey, the spouse is not going to give me what I need. I'm going to pour my entire life into my kids. And that's not healthy. It's good to pour your life into your kids, but you also need to be pouring your life into your spouse. Your marriage should be first and foremost. So I've seen this where a guy would say, hey, he's working later and later because he didn't want to come home to a house full of chaos, even though he created it. But he doesn't see it that way. I get it. So I'd get with a guy, and he'd start coming home at a decent hour, and he would start helping. He would start taking out the trash. Well, like for me, you don't want me cooking. I mean, I could, but it's going to be sausage and eggs, bacon and eggs, and toast, and, maybe paninis. I could probably grill a burger or something, but in general, you don't want me cooking. Now, I'm a great dishwasher. I can clean up the kitchen just like that. So for years, not because we had a meeting about it, just kind of worked out. My wife likes to cook, and she's actually good at it, so she would cook, and I would clean up. And then we would both take the kids and do whatever. And so the guys are like, it's my wife to take care of the kids. Well, let's just suppose that's true. It is your wife's job, which I don't agree with. I'll tell you, man, you are missing out, guys. Man, I so enjoyed talking to my kids. When they were real little, giving them baths. I love giving them baths. What a great time to have fun with them and talk. And they're so funny and they're so fun when they're little like that. So I absolutely love giving them baths. I love giving them, hanging out with them right after school. I love doing the homework with them if there was any homework. Even though like if it got past 7th grade math, I was no good. But some of the writing and things like that, I could be helpful if they needed me. I enjoyed that part. I thought, man, guys, you are missing out on a great time in your child's life. If you want to come home and if you think that from you get home at 5 or 6 until bedtime, that's your time. Man, that's pretty selfish, honestly. So let's not do that. And plus, you're missing out. I so love that time. In fact, I for years, when I walked in the door, I set my laptop aside. I didn't answer my phone unless I absolutely had to. And then after everybody went to bed, then if I had to return emails, do some work, some catching up, or project or whatever, I would crank it up at that point. And I never regretted that. That was awesome. And so in this case, he's going to have to start coming home at a decent hour and put some of those, be a little more productive during the day. I would rather give up a couple hours sleep than give up time with my family. She's going to have to start complimenting him on the things he does, not the things he doesn't do, so she doesn't come across as nagging and disrespectful. Otherwise, he's not going to come home. He's going to stretch it out. So they're both going to have to start doing a little bit better. And he's going to have to realize he doesn't sit down till she sits down. You know what'll happen? Instead of her killing herself from the time he gets home till bedtime, if he would actually help, she wouldn't be so tired and she would have more time to pour into him. I have videos on intimacy. Let me tell you, this couple's not having any. There's no sex going on in this marriage, I promise you. Unless it's a once a year business trip and the kids aren't there. But in this particular case, the guy's got to jump in and help and realize that her job's just as hard as his. When I came home, I knew I had to keep the kids sometime during the day. There's no break. And when she would come home, it's like, thank you, thank you. So when I come home from work, when my wife did stay with the kids, and she's a school teacher, but I'd come home and the kids would run out and go, Daddy, 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 for a while, and then they stopped that obviously at some point. But I just love being with them, and I'm so thankful for those years where I decided to do that, and I'll put off my emails and all that till later that night. So that I hope that helps in that particular situation. There's probably more to it that I'm not aware of, but that's a start. On to the next question. My wife and I, it's basically saying my wife and I seem to be at each other's throats. We're struggling on getting along. It's not really bad, but we're not really close like we used to be. I get several questions along those lines. So, and I'm paraphrasing about 4 questions here as I look at them. And I can say this most of the time. Somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, man, yesterday was rough. It's been a rough week. It's been a rough month. It's been a while. We haven't had any intimacy in a while, whatever the case may be." And almost every time, first thing out of my mouth is, "When did you have your last date night?" Darn near 100% of the time, it was, they can't remember the last time. Oh, so I've got this guy. He'll come to me and he'll say, "Oh, things are rough, and gosh, I don't know what I'm gonna do. She's mad at me or whatever." And I would say, "When's the last date night?" Yeah, "Oh gosh, oh man, I forgot about that." And he'd schedule it and he'd come, "Oh, things are great. Next week things are great." And I would see him 2 or 3 months later, and "Oh, things are bad," and I'd say, "When's the last time you had a date night?" And he would say, "Oh, that's really what happens. It's like date night cures all." I know it really doesn't, but it helps. Having a date night at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. I have forever had a date night. So this is what people do. They schedule everything, and if there's enough time, they schedule a date night. Well, if the best thing you can do for your children is have a good marriage, and if the most important human on earth is your spouse, wouldn't that be what you schedule and then schedule everything else around it? Well, I'm just too busy. We got baseball, basketball, ballet band. Well, if I said, "Here's $1,000,000, you have to have a date night every single week for the next year, and then you can cash the check," what would you do? You'd have one because you would figure it out because it would be that important. It's more important than $1,000,000. It is more important than that. So here's what happens. You don't have a date night. So when you do see each other, it's like, well, little Johnny did this and little Sally did that. Is anybody named Sally anymore? But anyway, a little Becky, whoever did this. And be sure to go to the cleaners tomorrow. And hey, I'm going to mow the yard on Saturday. And hey, I'm going to a girls' night out on Tuesday. I've got this. Did you fix the sink? Or can you do this? That's the kind of conversations you have. And that you got to have those conversations. But you got to have some of those conversations like, "How you doing? What can I do for you? I can't wait to do whatever I want to have those conversations and ask those questions and really get intimate, both emotionally, mentally, physically, and every which way with my spouse. And the only way you can do that is if you're spending time with your spouse. So, and a great way to do that is a date night. And I'm going to talk a little bit about date nights. A little. So, what happens if you don't have a date night? When you do get together, it's usually just talking about a bunch of stuff. Then the next, if you do it twice a week, then you've already covered a lot of that, and then you can talk about, hey, do you like these jeans I bought? And you can get down to, hey, the other night we had a really good time, didn't we? And hey, did you love it when I did this? Did you? I mean, you can have the most intimate conversations if you're together and you're away from the kids and you're actually looking at each other and the phones are not involved in the date night, those sort of things. It actually turns into real relationship building. My wife and I have date nights every single week. We have for years and years. Have we ever skipped one? Of course. I mean, sometimes traveling or whatever. But it's rare. I mean, it is rare. When the kids were little, we figured it out. And maybe we put them to bed early and we had a date night from 8 to midnight. I mean, we've had to do that on certain occasions. Sometimes we would swap with friends where they would come watch our kids while we go on a date night and they would watch ours. Or even better, they get a little older, have them spend the night over at the friend's house. If you know them really, 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 really well, I mean, they're like, you know them so well. They're like your sister and you know everything. That's a whole new topic. One of the things I would go against is sleepovers with your children. That's another topic. But if you really know them, you know what's going on. That way you can have a date night at your house and you got all night with your spouse. Isn't that in an empty house? Wouldn't that be awesome? And it's cheap staying at home. But so when you have there's some other things I've suggested. Somebody said, well, we have football practice on Thursday or basketball, ballet band, whatever. Well, can't the kids carpool? Can't they ride with somebody else and y'all can go on a date night? Well, I don't want to miss any practices. My kids are going to be young once. Well, the best thing you can do for your children is to have a good marriage. It's not going to really help your children if you have a terrible marriage, but you saw every football, basketball, band practice. It's really not. The priority would be your spouse. So we got to plan time with your spouse. Let's suppose you only have one date night, and it can be cheap. It can be cheap. You don't have to spend hardly any money whatsoever. You do that. What you can do throughout the other nights is, hey, honey, let's go get a cup of coffee. Hey, kids, we did this for years. Even if we didn't have a date night, most days I'd say, hey, I need 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes with your mom. And it's not for just for sex, or it's to have conversation. A lot of times we would go sit on the couch. We'd go sit on the couch on the porch. It would be we'd just sit out there and chat, and we'd say, hey, kids, and leave us alone for 20, 30 minutes. Just go play, do whatever, stay alive. We're going to be out here talking. And our kids love that. They just thought there's an amount of security in that everything's okay with mom and dad. In fact, if we went 2 or 3 nights and didn't have a couch date for a few minutes, this is not date night. This is in addition to date night, by the way. One of them would say, hey, is everything okay? I noticed you and mom haven't been on the couch lately talking. See, the kids love that. It's not taking time away. This is for the children, because the best thing you can do for your children is have a good marriage and having that time together. And so we would. And so when we got to an actual date night, we didn't have to discuss much. A lot of these couch dates were, how you doing? What went on today? And, venting a little bit, sharing stories, listening to each other and appreciating each other. And it wasn't long. Sometimes it's 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes it went a little longer, depending on how busy the kids were, until somebody started crying or something. But we did that quite a bit. Huge, huge, huge thing for relationships. So there's another thing when somebody says, "Hey, we're kind of at each other's throat." Probably not a date night. Probably not talking much, and probably not talking on a daily basis. And guys, oh my gosh, guys, and women too. Everybody blames it on the guys, but most of the time we want to talk. We just want to be heard. We don't want a fix. We already know what the fix is. That goes for guys too. Ladies, if the guy said, "Hey, I got this guy at work. He's doing this. Well, you should just fire him." I tell you what I do. I just fire. We don't need that. We just want you to do the same thing that you want from us. Just listen. We know we need to fire him. We can't. HR is not going to let us. We got to go through a process or whatever the case may be. There's a there's just that want to sit down and listen. Guys want to be understood. Guys, your wives just want to be understood. The fix is understanding. The fix isn't trying to fix it. You probably married a brilliant wife, and she knows what the fix is. She just likes to. She just wants to be heard and understood. But that's part of the date night. That's part of the couch date night, which is invaluable. Getting a cup of coffee. Sometimes I'll say, hey, let's just go get a cup of coffee, and we'll drive down the road and back, and it'll be 20 minutes later, just to have time to unwind throughout the week, not counting date night. Something else you can do at band, basketball practice, and all those sorts of things. If you really need to be there, go together, sit beside each other. Don't sit with all your friends occasionally, and just talk while they're out there having practice. You can do that as well. Sometimes at ball games, you know you got to get your child there an hour early so they can warm up and out. Take that hour, leave, go sit at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or wherever, and just have a cup of coffee before the game, and then come back to the game. There's if you're creative enough, there's a lot of cool times to have date nights that'll really help. And I'm talking about date nights and spending time together and communicating. I really have 400 and something questions that I've developed over the years. I know other people have developed them over the years too, so it's not unique to me. But these are the ones that I created. Just my wife and I just sitting down asking each other questions. 200 and something of them are just everything related, and about 200 and something are intimacy related. And we just occasionally ask those questions, and we'll have a date or whatever, and we'll say, "You want to ask some questions?" Sure. And if I can't think of any, I'll go to my list. And the answer she gave 6 months ago may not be the answer she gives today, which is really cool about that, about learning about each other. And but the only way that happens is if it's just us together spending time together. It doesn't happen any other way. And it goes back to, hey, my wife and I were not getting along, and well, why would I want to have a date night? Well, I don't want to spend any more time with her if we're not getting along. That's not how it works. The other way. Spend the more time you spend together, the more time you're intimate with each other, the more time you're having these great, awesome conversations, the more time you want to spend with her. Because I look so forward to spending time with my wife. Sometimes I'm working out in the basement or I'm getting ready for work, and because I usually leave really early, and if I hear her upstairs getting ready, it's like, oh, I'm gonna sit down, get the coffee going, and I'll wait because I'd rather visit with her for 20 minutes before I go to work. I just saw her the night before for 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. Can't wait to see her. The more time I spend with her, the more time I want to spend with her. Obviously, she's an awesome person, but that's how it should work, right? The more you learn and the more you love someone, the more you desire them, the more you want to spend time with them. And that's never slowed down. It's probably increased for us, but we've been very intentional. It hasn't been by accident. We really do the things that I'm sharing. I really do ask the questions. We really do have date nights once or twice every week. I can tell you for sure we're going to have a date night Wednesday night this week. 100% chance. We may, due to travel and some things, we may not have another one, but I'm certainly going to try to have another one. Potentially this coming Sunday night, we're going to have one in addition. So there you go. We really do these things. And so if you're at each other's throats, and you're not having date night, that's a key. So that's when you learn about each other. Like, sometimes you learn by saying, hey, I said this and now she's mad at me, so I just won't say that anymore. I mean, there's some obvious ones, but you learn more of, oh, I didn't realize that you like me to do this way. I didn't realize that you hated this part of it. I kept doing it because I thought you liked it. Those are the conversations you have when you're together and you're not being interrupted. I'll share 2 or 3 things more about date night, and this really has to do with relationship and arguing. So keep this in mind. This isn't just about date night, but here's some rules on date night. No cell phones. Tell the babysitter and the kids, if the house is on fire, call the fire department. Don't call me unless you've already called the ambulance. don't call me asking me anything about homework or anything. You just stay alive for the next couple hours. That's your goal. And then, so no cell phones. It just drives me crazy. I go into a restaurant and all these couples, they're all staring at their phones. I love a phone. I have mine with me all the time. I'm on it all the dang time. I'm addicted to my phone just like you. But if I'm with my wife, heck no, I am not addicted to my phone because I'm addicted to my wife. So I'm not going to do the phone. In fact, I'm almost embarrassed to look at it. She may say, "Hey, what time are we supposed to be at such and such?" And it's kind of like, I don't even want to act like I'm looking at my phone. I don't want anybody to think this is a good idea, looking at your phone on a date night. If we happen to be at a restaurant, that is. We prefer date nights at home, not because we're old fashioned or cheap or anything like that. It's just hard to talk at a restaurant. It's hard to ask an intimate question about your sex life or your whatever life or whatever's going on. And meanwhile, someone's saying, "Would you like some more iced tea? Would you like dessert? Did you save room for dessert? Can I get that plate for you, ma'am? Did you enjoy your salmon?" You know, any. It's just hard to have those conversations. It's so much easier at home. Well, I hope this helps in your relationship. I hope this makes a big difference. How do you get closer as a couple? How do you not be at each other's throats? How do you not argue? And the best way is to get to know each other better and better and better. And I look forward to seeing you again. Hey, pass this along to whoever you think needs it. It's not, and make sure that this isn't just something that you just say, "Oh wow, that Russ, he's so smart. Gosh, I just love listening to him and watching him because he's got all these great ideas." Don't just have it at that. Implement. As soon as you press pause or swipe up on this, get on your calendar, schedule a date night, get that ball rolling. I hope this helps.